Hey everyone, welcome back to Steve's View. Today we're diving into something that's been quietly reshaping American politics. Not through headlines or rallies, but through the numbers. Donald Trump's approval ratings are sliding. Not collapsing, not imploding, but sliding, slowly, steadily, and in a way that tells us something much bigger than just one man's popularity. Because this isn't just about Trump. It's about where American voters are mentally, emotionally, and politically heading as the country approaches yet another presidential election cycle. It's about the fatigue, the frustration, and the quiet recalibration happening in the heart of the electorate, the middle class, the independents, the people who don't live on Twitter and don't care about partisan theater. Let's break it down. Recent polls from NBC News, The Washington Post with ABC and The Economist all show roughly the same pattern. Trump's overall approval rating has dipped to somewhere between 39% and 43%, while disapproval hovers near 55% to 59%. Now, numbers on their own don't mean much. What matters is who's moving, and what's clear is that Trump's base is holding, but the middle, the swing voters, the independents, the soft Republicans, are slipping away. Among independent voters, his approval has fallen to the low 30s. That's catastrophic territory for a politician who once built his image around winning. And the reason isn't complicated. Inflation has eaten into paychecks. Housing costs are crushing families. Healthcare feels impossible to navigate. And voters feel tired. Tired of chaos, tired of anger, tired of promises that sound tough but deliver little. Even some of those who once backed Trump now quietly admit we wanted a wrecking ball, not a demolition crew. Let's talk about the economy, the one issue that still moves votes more than anything else. Under the surface, the data looks okay. GDP growth is steady. Unemployment is low. Markets are relatively stable. But when you talk to real people, it doesn't feel like that. Middle-class families are spending hundreds more each month just to stay afloat. Groceries, gas, rent. Everything costs more. And when the administration tells them the economy is strong, it almost sounds like an insult. That's the key disconnect. Data prosperity versus lived experience. For millions of working and middle-class Americans, the promise of economic populism, whether from Trump or Biden, feels broken. Trump campaigned on bringing back manufacturing, taking on China, and standing up for American workers. Some of that happened on paper, sure, but what most voters see is that their bills are higher and their savings are lower. And when populism fails to deliver materially, voters start to drift, not necessarily to the other party, but away from politics altogether. That's what's dangerous. Here's the part pundits always underestimate. Most Americans are not ideologues. They're not living in Fox News or MSNBC bubbles. They just want stability, a functioning country, affordable groceries, and maybe, once in a while, a government that doesn't embarrass them on Twitter. Trump's first term was chaos by design. That's what his supporters loved about him. He was the political Molotov cocktail thrown at the establishment. But in his second term, that same chaos now feels exhausting. The endless culture wars, over pronouns, race, immigration, woke corporations, they're not energizing the middle anymore. They're draining it. You can see this in focus groups across the country. Voters say things like, "I still like his policies, but I'm tired of the drama. I want strong, not loud." That shift, from excitement to exhaustion, is what every populist movement eventually faces. When anger stops feeling productive, it just becomes noise. Here's what's fascinating. While Trump's numbers are dropping, the Democratic Party isn't gaining. According to the same NBC poll, Republicans have a net favorability of -9%, but Democrats are even lower at -25%. That means voters dislike both parties. They just dislike the Democrats more right now. That's not exactly a sign of national unity. What it really shows is a growing block of political orphans, voters who feel like neither side represents them anymore. They don't see themselves in the GOP's obsession with grievance politics, and they don't see themselves in the Democrats' culture-first, technocratic language. They want someone who understands the day-to-day anxiety of modern American life, not just who wins a debate about climate or immigration. And the truth is, neither party has figured out how to talk to these people in years. It's impossible to talk about Trump's decline without talking about why the Democrats haven't capitalized on it. In theory, when your opponent is bleeding, you should be surging. But that's not happening. Because Democrats long ago lost the language of economic empathy. They talk in statistics, not stories. In percentages, not pain. While Biden's team touts record job creation and historic investments, the average voter is sitting at their kitchen table asking, then why does everything still feel so damn expensive? It's not that Democrats haven't done anything. They've passed big bills, the Inflation Reduction Act, the CHIPS Act, student loan relief. But most of those programs help corporations, green tech companies, or students. The middle-class homeowner in the suburbs, or the worker whose wage can't catch up to rent, they don't see any of it. They just see Washington spending billions while their own savings vanish. Republicans, meanwhile, have mastered emotional simplicity. America first. They took your jobs. The system is rigged against you. The message is blunt, emotional, and effective. And even if it's not entirely true, it feels true, which in politics is often what matters most. Trump's falling approval isn't just about Democrats gaining ground. It's also about a quiet civil war inside the Republican Party. There's a growing divide between two types of conservatives: the MAGA revolutionaries, who want constant confrontation, and the institutional conservatives, who want to rebuild credibility. Enter J.D. Vance, Trump's running mate and the man many now see as the future of the movement. He's young, articulate, and disciplined in a way Trump never was. He talks less about revenge and more about renewal, about fixing the system, not just breaking it. And that's exactly what disillusioned middle-class conservatives are craving. Not less populism, but a cleaner version of it, one that feels serious, competent, and future-focused. If Trump's first term was the rebellion, his decline might mark the transition into something else, a rebranding of populism for a new generation. Here's the part that gets overlooked in most poll coverage. Beyond the horse race, polls are like national therapy sessions. They tell us what people value when they're scared, angry, or uncertain. And in this latest round, Americans ranked protecting constitutional rights as their top priority, higher than inflation, healthcare, or immigration. That's striking. It means that underneath all the noise, voters still believe the system itself, the Constitution, the checks and balances, the rule of law, is worth defending, even when they don't like who's in charge. That's actually encouraging, because it shows that despite polarization, the Democratic muscle memory still works. Voters may be cynical, but they still care about the guardrails. That's what separates exhaustion from apathy. One can still lead to renewal. If you add up all the self-identified moderates, center-left, and center-right voters, they make up roughly 2/3 of the country. 2/3. But you'd never know it from watching cable news or scrolling social media. The loudest 20% on both sides dominate the conversation, while the vast middle, the people who don't hate their neighbors, gets drowned out. That's why the country feels more extreme than it really is, because the algorithms reward outrage, not reason, and politics has become performance art. Yet underneath that digital noise, the data shows a quiet yearning for something different. Competence, decency, seriousness. Voters don't necessarily want unity. They just want normal back. So what does Trump's decline really tell us about where America's heading? It says this: voters are getting harder to manipulate. They've been through too many cycles of hope and disappointment. They've seen every brand of politician: the outsider, the insider, the savior, the fighter, and they're learning to judge results, not rhetoric. The next era of American politics won't be defined by charisma. It'll be defined by credibility. People are starting to value competence over combat, and that's why both parties are now facing a reckoning. The GOP has to prove it can govern without chaos. The Democrats have to prove they remember what a grocery bill looks like. Neither has an easy path forward, but for the first time in a while, voters are no longer hypnotized by the show. If there's one lesson in all this, it's that democracy isn't a static system. It's a living, self-correcting organism. Every few years, voters send a message, sometimes with fury, sometimes with fatigue, about what kind of country they want to live in. Trump's declining approval isn't just a verdict on him. It's a verdict on an era of politics built on anger. America's middle class, long ignored and overtaxed, is quietly rewriting the script. They're saying, we're done being pawns in someone else's war. We want accountability, not chaos. We want a government that works, not one that performs. That's not a liberal message or a conservative one. That's a democratic message in the small d sense. So yes, Trump's approval is falling. But maybe that's not a sign of decay. Maybe it's a sign of maturity, of a nation finally learning that real strength isn't in shouting, but in choosing better next time. And that's where we are, a country exhausted but still engaged, frustrated but still hopeful, divided but still very much alive. Because, for all its flaws, America still does what democracies are meant to do. It argues, it adjusts, and eventually, it learns. Thanks for watching. If you found this breakdown useful, hit that like button, share it with someone who's tired of the noise, and I'll see you in the next one.